Welcome to the Heart and Life Podcast, a podcast dedicated to encouraging, equipping, and edifying the people called Methodists in North Alabama and across the globe. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the Heart and Life Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Rogers. Did you know that there are over 400,000 kids in foster care in the United States? Did you also know that 6,000 of those are right here in the state of Alabama? Well, 40 years ago, out in Costa Mesa, California, a pastor named Wayne Tesh and his wife Diane saw that there was a great need to provide hope to the kids in their area who were in foster care. That summer, Wayne and Diane and a group of folks came together to put on a week-long summer camp for 37 kids ranging in age from 6 to 12. They had a simple goal in mind: to create for these kids moments that would matter. And that summer, Royal Family Kids was born. And that really spawned an entire movement. 40 years later, there are over 200 camps across the United States and around the world, including 4 here in the state of Alabama. Around 16 or 17 years ago, the church that my family and I were part of launched one of these camps. Barry Hallman, who is one of our presiding elders, was the pastor there at the time, and I distinctly remember the Sunday he first shared about the camp and his desire to see our church get involved. Friends, let me tell you, in that moment, I knew that God was calling me to be involved. After church that day, my wife and I were talking, and it turned out that she felt the exact same way. From that day on, RFK has been a big part of my family's life. Our kids grew up on our stories about going to camp each summer, and as soon as they were old enough, they started volunteering as well. I think that as time has gone on, and we have had volunteers in the camp who have been a part of it for any length of time, they could each tell so many stories about what camp is like and what makes it so special. I'd like to, as we get started today, share a brief story that I like to tell about how amazing camp really is. A few years back, I was helping out at camp registration. If you can imagine, there are all of these kids who are showing up to the church. They're getting checked in, and everyone's getting organized to get on the bus to go out to camp. And there's this little boy who's kind of hanging back. Now, most of the other kids are running around, and they're playing, and they're excited, but not this boy. He was nervous. He looked so unsure of himself. He wasn't really interacting with the other kids or any of the other adults. I went over and talked to him for a few minutes, but he was so shy, he hardly said a word. A little later on the bus, as we were riding into camp, I tried to chat him up again with only marginally better results. I offered him encouragement, and I tried to tell him how much fun he was going to have at camp. Let's just say he was skeptical. That was on the Monday morning of camp. Now, my work at camp keeps me on the move pretty much all the time. So I didn't really get a chance to catch up with this boy again until Thursday. When I came up to him, his whole countenance had changed. Instead of his eyes being glued to the ground, he looked right at me. Instead of looking worried or nervous, he had a big grin on his face. So I asked him how he was liking camp, and this is what he said. He said, "I don't know why I doubted camp. It's the best week ever." And it is the best week ever. Well, today I'm excited to have on the podcast Leslie Spencer. She is the director of our camp, and I invited her on to talk about RFK for a couple of reasons. First, I just want everybody to know all about RFK because it is such an incredible ministry and because it's been such a big part of my life and the life of my family. But I also wanted to have Leslie on because RFK showcases powerful and life-changing ministry that takes place outside the walls of the church. So, Leslie, thanks for being on, and welcome to the Heart and Life Podcast.
Thanks so much. I don't even know after that introduction if really you didn't need me. Like you summed it all up great. Like I think everybody knows everything now.
Oh no, there's so much we could talk about with camp, and I know when any of us who have been volunteers for any length of time start talking about camp, the conversation just goes on and on and on. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation today, and I'm really looking forward to our listeners being able to hear more about camp, and I'm looking forward to them being inspired by our conversations about camp to get involved in some way. So, what I like to do, Leslie, when I have folks on, I really like to start out with just kind of learning a little bit more about them. Of course, I have known you for a long time personally, but our listeners don't know you. So, I'll just start by asking you if you want to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe some about your own faith journey that's brought you to where you are today.
Sure. So my name is Leslie Spencer, and I am the director for the Children Royal Family Kids Camp 218. We're based out of the kind of the Birmingham area. I am a preacher's kid, I will admit. Not a typical preacher's kid, but I am a preacher's kid. My father is still a Methodist minister out in Vernon. Um, and so I obviously grew up in the church, and as a preacher's kid, when the church doors are open, you were there. At times, I didn't always like it, but it definitely gave me a firm foundation that I have depended on for the remainder of my life. I am married to Michael Spencer. We've been married for 22 years as of this month, and we
Nice.
have two great kids. Our son Ethan is 20 and is a sophomore at the University of Alabama. Roll Tide. No, you're an Auburn fan, so sorry. And then my daughter is 17 and she is a junior, and we are starting the college search with her. And so
Oh boy.
yeah, that's a fun time. We'll go with fun time. Um, and then usually if I am not working on something for camp, I'm hanging out at home with Michael and the kids if they're around, but getting older, they're not around as much. And our Great Danes, we have two right now. We have Max, who is actually a trained therapy dog, and he goes to camp with us. So when we say camp is a family affair at our house, we mean it is a family affair. Everybody, including the dog, goes.
That's
And
right.
then we have another Great Dane, and his name is Bane, and he's just real pretty. He's just real pretty.
Well, I can testify. Max is the star of camp. The kids absolutely love him and love having him there. What a cool thing to be able to have him along at camp. So I wanted to really just dive in and talk about camp. So, for those who are not familiar with Royal Family Kids, and you mentioned For the Children, which is I know sort of the umbrella organization, but if you could just kind of maybe give our listeners a snapshot of what RFK is and what it's all about.
So the core mission is to create positive memories for children. These are all children that have some form or have experienced some form of abuse, neglect, or abandonment. They have all experienced some sort of trauma. And we are there to create the positive memories and to let them know that there are people out there that love them just for them, and that there's a God that loves them. The program itself is kind of set up into two tracks, you could say. So there is Royal Family Kids Camp, which is the summer camp, which is what we put on. And then a lot of churches also do the mentoring program. So the camps are for kids ages 6 to 12. And then once they graduate out, they can then go into, if it's offered, the mentoring program, which goes up to age 18 and kind of continues what they've experience through camp, like on a monthly basis. It's usually once a month that they'll meet and meet with mentors, and just continue on what they have started in camp.
Awesome. Awesome. So, like we said in the opening, these camps have been around for a long time. They've been around for about 40 years, and they're scattered around the country and even in some other countries. Here in Alabama, there are. I'm right on that, am I not? That there are four in
There,
Alabama.
there have been five.
Okay.
There's one that kind of has had to take a little bit of time off, but there is one in North Alabama. There's ours. There's one in Tuscaloosa, and then there's also one in South Alabama.
Okay, so they are. That's one cool thing, and good for our listeners to know is that the camp that you and I are a part of is sort of in the Birmingham area, but there are camps that are in other parts of the state. So
Yes.
there are ways to get connected if somebody's thinking about it and they're thinking, hey, I'd like to maybe get involved or maybe support this. Of course, we would love the support for our camp because it is an entirely volunteer ministry, but there are other camps that might be more geographically feasible for some folks. So
Yes,
that is good to
absolutely.
know.
And for the kids as well. Obviously we want them at our camp, but I'm of the opinion it doesn't matter to me which camp they go to as long as they're at camp. And I'm the same with volunteers. All camps need help. All camps need volunteers. So even if for whatever reason, whether it's geographically or what have you, we couldn't find a spot in our camp, I promise you, I can find you a spot somewhere. Like
Yeah.
I can find you a spot somewhere.
Absolutely. No, that's good. So, Leslie, what about you personally? How did you get involved with RFK, and what keeps you coming back year after year?
Um, I always tell people when I talk about camp that it is the greatest week of your life that you never knew you always needed. And it's one of those things we can explain it over and over again, but until you experience it yourself, you don't fully understand. I kind of also equate it to like an Emmaus walk. You can know exactly what's going to happen on an Emmaus walk, but until you're there and you experience it yourself, it just takes on a whole new meaning. Now, my husband, Michael, he has been involved every year. I did not go to camp the very first year that we had it, and we just completed we're working on our 16th year, so we've completed 15 full years of camp. Our kids were, obviously very little at that time. But, anyways, he is a child of adoption himself. He was 6 when he was adopted. So, this really resonated with him. And then him going to camp and then coming back and telling me, and he just kept saying, I really wish you would have been there. You understand it so much more when you're there. And he is correct. You understand it so much more when you're there. And I've been director for the last 5 years. And when I took over, well, I guess almost 6 years now. And when I took over, my kids originally were not old enough, but they still had to help. So whether it was, getting registration stuff together or the training together and making copies and stuffing envelopes and the rest of it, they've always, kind of been involved. And then once they got old enough and actually went to camp, then they completely understood. And especially with my daughter, that's been the biggest change with her because she's got to come the last 2 years and she's like, I get it now. I understand. And I understand why you do this and why you put so much time and effort into it because those kids are worth it. And I'm like, yes, they are worth it 100% of the time, every time.
Absolutely, and you highlight something, and our my family and your family really are sort of exemplify this, but we're certainly not alone in it. But so many of our volunteers have come back year after year after year. They have come now; their kids are coming to help and be a part of it, and it just in a lot of ways it really is a family ministry. I know all four of the folks in my family go to camp every year. I know your whole family goes, and we're not alone in that. There are others who they always come to camp and they
Yes,
always help out.
it's one of the most amazing things that you can do together as a family. Even when you're not, like for us, my husband, he's usually a big camper. The director, and I'm usually in 1,000 places doing 1,000 different things. My son is now old enough that he's a big camper. And then my daughter, she's kind of what we call a CIT. So she just kind of floats and she fills in where's needed and everything. So even though we don't necessarily spend that week together, like side by side, going into camp and especially leaving camp and at the end of camp, us being able to have those conversations together and really seeing what each one is experiencing and how, the kids might have related to one of us more so than the other or what have you. And just again, having those experiences, it's something that you just really can't put a price on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know your kids and my kids, they grew up hearing stories about it. They really had, it's almost like it was forced, but it wasn't really
Yes.
like for the most part. And now they come back willingly most of the
Well,
time.
and
No.
my daughter was that way when she turned 15. She was like, "Oh, I guess I'm going to camp now." And then she went, and before the week was out, she was saying, "I'm in for next year. Like, you don't have to make me come. I'm coming next year, no matter what." So again, it's one of those, once you experience it, I mean, it's, you don't want to use really the word addictive, but it's addictive. I mean, you're addicted to those kids, and you want to come back and keep pouring into them because, while I know that we are a blessing to those children, I feel so much more blessed having spent that week with them. Like, I don't know, I feel like I get more out of it than probably they do.
Yeah, I can relate to that for sure. So you stepped into the role as director, like you said, almost 6 years ago, and it's a big responsibility. So clearly, this is a ministry that means a lot to you. But what kind of led you to say, yeah, you know what, I think I'm ready to take the reins of this thing?
Well, so my first year, I was actually a big camper, and I'm not ashamed to admit I was probably not the best big camper. Um, it's everyone has a role at camp, and there are different roles, and people are more suited for some roles than others. And sometimes it's just a matter of finding your niche. We've had people that have done several roles throughout camp, and once you find it, you find it. And um, I would like to say I have good leadership skills. My kids would probably say I'm a little bossy, but I feel like I have good leadership skills.
Yeah.
And I'm an organized kind of type A person. Anyone that has ever been to camp, they have had to take what we call the color personality test. And it's kind of the short version of it. There's four different colors. There's a blue, there's a red, there's a yellow, and there's a green. The greens are the peacemakers. Um, Not my strong suit. The yellows are cheerleaders, definitely not my strong suit. And then the blues are planners, and then the reds are kind of they call them producers. They're your type A people. And when I take the personality test, I am 50% red and 50% blue, which means I'm probably going to plan it and then try to do it myself. So, that just, it's where I fit in best. Um, and then we had Cindy Colvin. She was our director for years. And then she, for health reasons and everything, needed to step down. We had a couple of other assistant directors that, stepped in when they could, but they didn't want to take over um, full time. And so I was like, I'll do it. And probably not knowing what I was getting myself into. But, 6 years later, here I am.
Well, and I think one thing that really needs to be said is camp lasts for a week, but the work of camp is a year-long thing.
It is, and throughout that year, we try to do various things for the kids throughout the year, whether it's, helping them with back to school supplies, a Christmas party, something in the spring, anything like that that we can do. We do not do the mentoring program just because geographically it's not really feasible, because we take so many outlier counties to kids of those counties. And so, kind of having a central place for everyone to meet once a month just hasn't really worked out. Um, but that doesn't mean that we don't try to do things for them throughout the year. And then obviously just the logistics of, taking that many kids to camp plus volunteers and the fundraising and all that stuff. I mean, it's just not one of those things you can plan in like a month.
For sure, for sure. Well, let's just kind of get down into some of the nuts and bolts of camp and kind of talk, because we've been talking about how great camp is and all of that kind of stuff, but kind of give us some of the basics of camp. How long it lasts? How do we get the kids? How many do we serve? How many volunteers does it take? Kind of give the rundown of what that's like.
Okay, so for the volunteers, our camp is Sunday through Friday. We get there on Sunday to get everything set up. Um, because we do a lot for the kids. We have a whole drama for them. We have a camp store. We have to set up, their bedding and all that good kind of stuff. Um, so we spend that Sunday getting everything ready for the kids. And then the kids get there on Monday, and then we all leave on Friday. It varies kind of from year to year as far as how many kids we take. Um, Usually we do about 64 kids, somewhere in there. This year's camp is going to be, we're looking at 40 kids. Um, Sometimes it's just, especially post COVID, the numbers were reduced because of COVID. So we're trying to, build our numbers back up. Um, and then camp itself is it's like a regular summer camp. If you've ever been to summer camp, if listeners have ever been to like Camp Simatonga or Blue Lake when they were kids, anything like that, it's a lot of outdoors. It is, the last week of June. It's a little warm, not gonna lie, little warm, and it can rain. That's always a good time. We can lose power, an even better time. But we always say that the word of the week is flexibility. We make the best of plans. They don't always happen. We always have a plan B, C, D, E, and F. And then, it's again, summer camp. There's a lot of swimming. There's a lot of fishing, there's canoeing. We have, all the kind of outdoors stuff. They've got, a basketball court. They have the little drifting trikes. I don't really know what they're called, but they drift and the kids love them. Um, we have nine squares, not quite as vicious as Gaga Ball, but Gaga Ball gets a little competitive. We do, arts and crafts, and then every day they also have what we call chapel time, and that's when they go up into like a chapel type hall, and they have a Bible lesson, they have an objects lesson, they sing and dance, always a good favorite, and then we put on a drama for them that lasts the whole week that tells kind of a story. This year's theme is construction. And then the story is going to be of Moses. So it'll be interesting to see how we kind of put those two together. Um, but yeah, it's, and then like I said, probably the favorite part of the volunteers time is what we call 30-30 time. And that's after lunch when we all go down to the dorms, and they have 30 minutes where they just have to, they don't have to take a nap necessarily, but they do have to have that 30 minutes of quiet time. A lot of them will write their letters then, or, read or that kind of thing. And then another 30 minutes of rest. Because we go from sun up to sundown and then some. And I mean, it's a full day. Probably their favorite day of camp is, we do our birthday parties on Tuesdays, and it's called Everybody's Birthday. And it is just like it sounds, it is everybody's birthday because it is extremely unfortunate that we have children without fail every year, if it's their first year at camp, that will say, I've never had a birthday party before. And I'm like, you know what? We're going to fix that. I promise you, you're having a birthday party. And they have their birthday present. They have, we've gone to, we used to kind of do like the small cakes, but we kind of do like the cupcakes now. Usually get to decorate their cupcakes, have sundaes, um, and just have a great time. And the birthday party is always one of probably their favorite time, and I would probably say their second favorite, besides all the swimming, is our talent variety show that we have at the end of the week. And that is, we just let them sign up and they can get on stage and showcase their talent because every child is talented just different ways. And
That's
we
right.
have had everything from spelling bees to an art show to karate shows to prom dances to cheering, singing,
Yeah, it
Nerf
runs the
wars.
yes, runs the gamut. We've had
Yes.
joke telling, we've
Yep.
had pogo people
Po-
doing tricks on pogo sticks.
Jump roping. Yes, you name it.
Yeah,
We've
yeah,
probably done it. And then I say that, and then inevitably every year some child comes up with a new talent and shows out and shows up, and it's a
that's
great
right.
time.
Absolutely. You touched on this a little bit, and I think it's so worth emphasizing this point. So many of these kids are coming from situations where they haven't been able to have what we would think of as a normal childhood. So a lot of them have never been fishing, they've never caught a fish, or they've never ridden in a canoe, or they've never jumped off a diving board, or they've never made a s'more, or you just fill in the blank. And there are so many things that our kids have been blessed that they just take these things for granted that these kids haven't been able to experience. And what we try to do is give them those experiences and give them positive memories that they can hold on to, where they see this group of people who were total strangers to them just absolutely loved on them unconditionally. And the transformation is seen when they get on that stage at the end of the week to do the talent show, because so many of them, like that little boy I talked about at the beginning, the first year they come to camp, they're terrified, they're in their shell, they don't want to talk to anybody, and then by the end of the week, you see them up there on the stage and they are showing out for everybody and everybody's cheering them on, and it is amazing.
Yes, they just want a chance to be a quote normal kid. Um, and one of the big things that I think really resonates with them at camp is they get choices. And unfortunately, these children, for their everyday life, don't necessarily get a lot of choices, especially if they're getting moved around from home to home. They don't get to pick, that kind of thing. So many choices are taken from them. And at camp, we do have a set schedule, but within that schedule they have choices on what they can do. They can go swimming, or they can go fishing, or they can do there's like a little mini putt putt, they can go play putt putt. Like, they have choices and they get to make the choices for themselves. um, Most of our children, that we have, don't have the chance to do like an average normal summer camp because of financial reasons, because of the situation that they're in. And so for us to be able to provide that to them and let them see that there are people out there that are wanting the best for them, and that are truly rooting for them, and that even though they may have at times in their lifespan already seen the worst in people, they can still see the best in people. And to know that their current circumstances don't have to dictate where they go. That you know I mean, we are firm believers that a week can change a life. I'm a firm believer that a moment can change your life. I think everybody has kind of had that moment where, whether it was a near, miss with a wreck, or, anything that just changed the trajectory of their life, and they're better off because of whatever happened. And so, when people ask, can a week change, a child's life? Absolutely. A moment can. So we are really there to help them see that, again, even though they may have not seen the best in a situation, that there is better, and that there is a God that loves them and wants better for them and will help them to get to a better situation.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. And the things that have happened to them don't define who they are. And
Correct.
and that's such a powerful message to share with kids who have been through, and we have had kids who have been through truly indescribably horrible things.
Right.
And
And we don't like for the children to be described as broken, because the children
that's
aren't
right.
broken. Their circumstances, absolutely, but they're children. There's
That's right.
nothing wrong with them. The situation, yes. And we just want to give them that foundation that they can build upon. And one of the most awesome things for us as volunteers has now been, because we have gone through 15 years of camp, we now have kids that came through as children that are coming back as volunteers. And it's so rewarding, but it's also so funny to hear them when they come back and they're like, I didn't know all this work went into camp. And it's like, well, yeah, because you only got to see the fun side. Now this is this is completely different. And they're like, I just really didn't realize that all this went on behind the scenes. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it takes a lot to make camp happen, but that's the point, is for those kids to only have those really good, enjoyable moments that, again, give them the foundation to build off of.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And I will say, to me, one of the most gratifying things is seeing those kids who came as little campers when they were little, now as teenagers, coming back and saying, this camp meant so much to me. I want to help other kids. I want to be involved because it meant so much to me.
So, one of the best things that I think that the kids get at the end of camp every year is they get the photo album that has all of their pictures from that we've taken throughout the week, whether it's, them jumping off the diving board, catching their first fish, the birthday party, just snapshots of the whole week. And having those kids, 10 years later, 15 years later come back and say, "Hey, I still have every single one of my photo albums." I mean, that's
Mm.
amazing. I have two kids myself, and them keeping up with anything is a miracle in itself. But I mean, that's something that means something to these kids, and they do. Those pictures, they keep. A couple of years ago, it was last year at a training session that I went to for the children in RFK. They had some former campers come and talk, and these people were 30, 28, 30 years old, and one of them said that the pictures that she had from camp are the only pictures she has from her childhood, and she still
Wow.
has them to this day. I mean, and that means something.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh. Yes. So yeah. So what we do at camp, and this is one of the things that I've been privileged to be a part of for the last several years, is taking pictures of the kids. So you can just imagine a summer camp experience with kids all over the place doing things. So we have several volunteers whose job it is to make sure that we are taking pictures of them doing all of this cool stuff. We get the pictures printed up, put them in a photo album, and those kids take them home with them and treasure them. I mean, we have heard so many stories, just like the ones you just shared about kids holding on to these. They may leave everything else behind when they get moved from one foster home to another, but they're going to make sure they've got those pictures with them, and that is just it's such a testament to how impactful, like you said, Leslie, a week can be. That they can hold on to these things, and I wonder if you would mind sharing the story about the child and having his mom having the bad week. Would you mind? I just put
That,
you on the spot
yes.
there.
No, no, I was actually going to tell that story. It's one of my
Perfect.
favorites to tell. So that's my friend Jack. Jack, when he came to our camp, was this tea tiny little blonde-headed boy full of energy. And I do
Pure
mean
energy.
full of energy. Like if I could find a way to bottle that up, I would be so rich. I mean,
For sure.
but he was, just the cutest little boy. And his first big camper was actually Drew, who was not the fastest person on camp by any stretch of the imagination. And he had little Jack, who was the fastest on at camp. But anyways, so he's now been adopted. He is in a great home. His adopted parents are fantastic people. But when they were in the process of adopting him, is when he came to camp, and she contacted me probably about 6 months or so after camp, and she said, "I just had to tell you this story." She said, "I've kind of had a bad week." She said, "And I was having a really, really bad day." She said, and I tried to hide it from Jack because I don't want him to get upset. She's like, "But he did. He caught me crying." And he was like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, I'll be fine. Don't worry about it," kind of thing. And he left and he came back and he said, "Whenever I'm sad, I look at my photos from camp. Here's my photo album. I promise you, if you look at it, it'll cheer you up."
Mm,
And I mean, that just, that got me like in all the feels. And I mean,
sure.
and to this day, he still has those photos and he still looks at them. And I mean, that
Yeah.
just shows you the impact that week and just even a snapshot from that week, what it does for those kids.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I love that story. It's such a like you said, it just tugs at the heartstrings. So that's awesome. Well, Leslie, I wonder, do you have any favorite camp memories or I mean, that's a powerful story there, but do you
So
have
that
any
one's
favorite moments from camp?
probably one of my most favorite.
Yeah.
One of my least favorite was, I think, oh, it might have been my first year at camp. We had some carnival type rides, and they did not agree with me at all. So that was probably my least favorite. Never again. No, thank you. I was
Oh,
one and done on
oh
that.
wow.
There's so many stories, um, but I think, I guess maybe from a personal perspective, as we discussed earlier, being able to experience that with my family has meant more than anything.
Mm,
And I would almost say some unlikely friendships that have developed from
mm.
camp. You never really know anyone till you live with them, and you live with, you know, strangers for a week,
Sure. Very close
in
proximity.
close proximity in bunk beds. And I mean, you may have thought you knew somebody, but you really get to know them at camp. And that, as a director, that's been one of the most awesome things for me to be able to watch, is especially like with the teenagers. Again, maybe they don't normally hang out in the same groups, and then a week at camp completely changes that. And it gives, sometimes some of the more seasoned, we're not going to say older, but the more seasoned adults, and again, those teenagers, early 20s, bonding that they probably normally never would have gotten. And again, just being able to see the friendships and the stories. And so we do have what's called, the staff break room, and that's where we had all the good stuff. That's where we had the sodas and the caffeine and the coffee, the sweet snacks and all that. We don't give those to our kids because we say they're sweet enough without them, but us adults kind of have to have that extra coffee, or what have you. But I mean, just being able to sit in there at the end, like during big camper relief, and them telling the stories about the day of what funny thing their little camper did, that kind of thing. Another one of my favorites, is when Stone was one of our volunteers, and he made it a mission that year to learn every kid's name and face. And I think we had 64 that year, and he did. He could name every kid without, I mean, like when he was going through pictures, he knew exactly who every kid was. And I mean, it was just amazing kind of to watch. And that was what he said he was going to do, and that was what he did. And he was a lifesaver on those
Oh,
pictures.
absolutely. And I can testify to this. And listeners, if you don't know, if you take 64 kids and dump them all into a swimming pool, they
They
all look the same.
they all look the same. Pool pictures are the worst, but I mean, it's, it again, a bonding experience between, the big campers, and the, whether it was activities people, or again, the different roles. And so I mean, just, it's amazing to watch all the differences
Mm,
really disappear when you all come together for this one common goal. And I mean, I will say, especially since I've, taken over as director, we have been so blessed with the friendships and everything, and everybody, just pitches in. And it's, it makes my life so much easier that we don't have to, because you kind of think about like a workplace, and inevitably there's drama and all that. And it's a God thing, because when
mm.
you're at camp, I mean, it's a God thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I mean, you really, I mean, the whole thing is you've got a group of people who all love God, and they all come from different, different backgrounds. And yeah, a lot of folks go to church together, but not everybody. We have volunteers that come from all over the place, and they're all thrown together for a week. But with everybody focused on this one goal of just loving these kids unconditionally, you just get to see, like, to me, what a glimpse of the kingdom of God is supposed to look like, of people setting
Absolutely.
aside personal stuff to self-sacrificially love on others, and to pick each other up, not just the kids, but hey, you know what? It gets hot, and you get tired, and you get worn out, and sometimes we pick each other up. And so, yeah, that part of it is, I agree. It's awesome to see.
Yes, if you hear it once, you will hear it at least 374 more times of it's for the kids. It's for the kids.
Mm,
And again, for, sometimes for our guy big campers, it's them having to get up there in a cheerleading uniform and get on the stage and cheer with the kids. And you just say it's for the kids, and you go up there and act a fool, and the kids love it. And that's what they
yeah,
remember, is that there was an adult that got down on their level and really engaged with them, and made them,
yeah.
to where they had just the best week ever.
Yeah, that is awesome. So, Leslie, there are a lot of different ways to be involved with camp, and one of the cool things to me about it is that you don't have to be, 20 years old and in the best shape of your life to be
No.
able to do camp. So talk a little bit about some of the jobs and really just kind of the breadth of who all can serve at camp.
So I'm not going to tell her age, but when Granny was at camp, she was well into her 80s and she
Hmm.
was there. I always say, regardless of age and regardless of anything else, I can find a role for you at camp. There is something that you can do at camp, whether it's behind the scenes or, being a big camper with the kids. And our big campers are the ones that, so the way that our camp is set up is there's a one big camper to every two kids. We don't do more than that. That way they get more of the one-on-one time. And then also it's easier to kind of tag team. So if like one of your kids wants to go swim and one of your kids wants to go fish, then you can get with another big camper and be like, hey, I'm going to take one of yours down to fish, and then you'll watch mine while they're in the pool. Great, got it covered. Awesome, we're good to go. Um, Big campers, they take the brunt as far as they are with their kids all day, every day. They do get two breaks, one in the morning and one in the evening after the kids go to bed. But other than that, they're with the kids, they're engaging with them, they're playing with them, you know, all the things. Then we have other roles, like we have activity roles, and that is, from helping them with arts and crafts to we have a coach getting out there, somebody that likes to rise up early in the morning because some kids are early risers and not all are, but they're the ones that'll get out there in the field with them and kind of do like a PE type deal with them and help them get some of that energy out first thing in the morning. We have a drama team, we have a music team, and with both the drama and the music, we need to have like a tech team. So, we need to have somebody that's running the sound and the video, all that good kind of stuff. We have the Bible, readers and leaders that teach. Um, we, Even if for some reason you didn't like kids, but you like people, we could have somebody that helped keep the staff room organized and everything. That would be a huge relief because that staff room is like, sometimes when it's 115 degrees outside and you just need to come in and sit down for a second and have something cold to drink. I mean, that staff room it's a life. It's a godsend at times. I
it
mean,
is
it's
it is an
especially.
oasis in the
Yes,
desert.
it's air conditioned and it has caffeine, and those are two things that we have to have during the week of camp. So there's all kinds of roles, and again, um, we say that you need to be 15 in order to come volunteer. So from 15 up until your 80s, I can find you somewhere that you will fit in. We've had some people that have, just done things as far as, like sewing and things that needed to be fixed throughout the week. We
Mhm.
also have nurses. We have nurses 24/7. We have social workers. So there's all kinds of roles and somewhere that anyone can fit in easily.
Yeah, there are all kinds of jobs, and listeners, as you're hearing this, you can imagine if we have 64 kids, there are how many volunteers are usually at camp when we're at full staff.
It's probably going to be about between 107 to 112.
Yeah. So there are a lot of jobs, and it takes a tremendous amount
Yeah, we have to
to
outnumber the
to put on.
kids.
Yes, yes, we don't want to be outnumbered for sure. And so there are roles for anybody's skill set, and we
Yes.
have we have people who you mentioned a lot of the jobs we have. Some of our teenage volunteers are just awesome and do so many cool things. We have we
Yes.
have um, we have them running back and forth doing 1,000 different things. We have some young men who come and help the kids to fish. A lot of kids don't know how to bait a hook. They don't know anything about casting. They don't know anything about
They
fishing,
bait a
and
lot of hooks.
they
A
bait a lot of
lot of
hooks.
hooks.
Um, so they spend their days, and these are guys who competed at least at the high school level on fishing teams, and they teach these kids how to fish. And it's just, again, things that maybe our kids sort of take for granted. So
And I will
lots of
say
different
for
ways
my
to be involved.
girls, if you can braid hair, you could have a job just braiding hair all week
Yes,
long. I mean, till your fingers are ready to fall off. There is a lot of hair braiding that goes on during the week of camp. Um,
absolutely.
so I didn't know if you wanted me to kind of also discuss like what the kids get at camp, like
Please,
what people
yes,
are
yes,
investing in.
yes,
So,
please do.
just kind of as a side note, so we say to sponsor a child for that week of camp, it's right at $650. That includes their lodging, their food, and then everything that they get. And so here's what they get. They will get a pillowcase with the pillow and a blanket. And our pillowcases the last few years have just been out of the park. Awesome.
Amazing.
Um,
Absolutely.
I may have had one made for myself because they were just that great. Not gonna lie, I totally did. We also provide them with pajamas for the week. We provide them with 5 days worth of t-shirts. One of the best things that I think our camp does is we do camp t-shirts. And so
Mhm.
the kids and the volunteers are all wearing the same t-shirt. One, it really helps with identifying our group at camp because we are all dressed alike, and that just is awesome. And it just, again, it gives everybody, a sense of belonging.
Mhm.
That's I really, really love. Like, there's so many benefits to us all wearing the same shirts. It
For
just
sure.
it makes life so much easier. So they get the 5 days of shirts. They get the set of PJs. We also provide them with swim shoes for the week. Um, and then if when they come into registration, kind of behind the scenes, something that they really don't see is that when we go get their bags and before we load them onto the buses to go to camp, we make sure that they have everything that they'll need for camp, enough clothes, socks, underwear, everything. If they don't, they'll never know, but what we do is we get it communicated to another volunteer, and this is part of her job is to we do have a kind of like a stash of items, so that if again, if they're maybe if they only have like one pair of shorts, we're going to get them some more shorts. If they don't have enough socks, again, whatever it is, so that when they get to camp, it's just there waiting on them. And then if we don't have it in kind of our stash, then we'll make a run and again get so that they have everything that they need for that week of camp. We also provide them with all of their toiletries, including toothbrush, toothpaste, hairbrush, shampoo, soap, all the good stuff, deodorant.
And the most
Most
important one
important,
being being
deodorant.
deodorant.
Being deodorant. They will try to tell you they don't need it. They do. Everybody
Yes.
does. We also provide them with the beach towel so that they'll have that for the week. Um, and then they, obviously at their birthday party, they have their birthday present waiting on them. What we've done the last several years is the boys kind of get, their group gift, and then the girls get theirs. And we've done everything like from the Target version of like the, was it the 18-inch doll, um, Lego sets, Nerf guns, um, jewelry
Rockets.
boxes. Yeah. Um, So yeah,
Yeah.
they get the same gift. So again, when we first started doing camp, we kind of did it different, and then in the end, like every kid kind of got like a different box that had just a bunch of little stuff in it, and then they would always end up switching it out and everything, and be like, oh, I wanted that. Well, I wanted that, and so this way they don't. Everyone has the same, and they're happy. We do put a lot of thought and effort into those gifts.
Hmm.
And one of the best things that we've also done is we have the camp store. I will not be embarrassed to say that we bribe those kids, because we do bribe those kids. They earn what's called camp bucks throughout the whole week. And they get to spend them at the camp store. And the way that they earn camp bucks is by going to bed on time. That's really the biggest one with the boys, because they do not ever want to go to bed on time. Um, Being brave, trying something new. If they've been scared to jump off the diving board, and then they jump off the diving board. Being extra nice, being extra helpful, anything, being an encourager, all kinds of ways that they can earn camp bucks. And then throughout the week, they get to go to the store and spend it. We have it and we collect year round for this, is all kinds of toys and sports equipment and jewelry and watches and just anything that they could possibly want, and they get to spend it. And one of the most amazing things to see is 9 times out of 10, when they're there, they're not shopping for themselves. They have like a little
Mm,
brother or sister at home, and they're like, oh, they would love this. I'm getting this for them. Like
yeah,
they are still constantly thinking of, other siblings that weren't at camp either because they were too young, or maybe they've even graduated out, or anything like that. So we provide the camp store for them. I was trying to think. And then usually each day is kind of themed a little bit differently. You know, one day for like last year, one day the theme was like Friends. We've done like different Disney things, and so like one year like they had little Mickey ears waiting for them. So like a little surprise for them every day that they get for them that matches the theme of the day. And then let's see. Oh, they also have scavenger hunts, and so they have little prizes waiting for them on the scavenger hunts as well.
yeah.
Plus the art projects that they make, the arts and crafts, and they come home with those. It's kind of it's funny to watch when we arrive at camp on Sunday. We have all these crates and boxes and everything else, and then when we leave, ours are empty, and the kids are coming back with And every time parents pick them up, they're like, they did not leave with this much stuff. We're like, nope, but they're coming home with this much stuff.
That's
Like,
right. That's right.
enjoy. Here you go.
Yes. Yes. And of course, every kid gets a Bible, and we
Yes.
show them how to use it, how to look stuff up. Throughout the week, there are Bible verses that they can learn and earn prizes for learning Bible verses, and that part of it is awesome. And
Yes.
one of the things that it's important to know is, of course, these kids, most of them are coming from uh, a foster care situation, or obviously they're coming from difficult circumstances. So whoever that they are staying with couldn't afford to send them to camp. So
Correct.
everything is paid for these kids. We
Yes. This
fundraise
camp.
throughout the year. Yeah, run
Yeah.
with that, Leslie.
So this camp is completely at no charge to the foster families or to the state, even if they're wards of the state. It's at absolutely no charge, and we are solely responsible for raising the funds ourselves. We're not, have like an unlimited budget that just somebody magically gives us. That would be awesome. If there's anyone out there that has that and wants to give it to me, that would be great. I promise I will
Absolutely.
be physically responsible with your money. But yes, and again, all of our volunteers are 100% volunteers. There are no paid positions. Matter of fact, we pay, we call them our camp fees to help kind of offset some of the costs. Again, because we're also staying at the camp, and we're also getting the meals and that and snacks. That is another thing I did forget to mention. They get snacks at least 2 to 3 times a day. I promise no one is going hungry at all.
No.
Um, and then we also like it in their rooms in the nighttime, because either maybe they take medication, or sometimes you just need a snack right before you go to bed, and that's fine. We always keep like peanut butter jelly sandwiches, or just a little snack for them, because you sleep better when you have a full belly. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, a lot of our kids, some of them have hoarded food because they have not always known where their next meal's coming from. And so that's something that we do work with them, when we show them, look, you have access to this anytime you want it. Your next meal is provided for at least this one week. This is not something that you need to worry about. You just get to be a kid.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but yes, everything we raise ourselves. We do various fundraisers throughout the year, and then we also, just go to different businesses and corporations, and I tell the story. And generally, I can tell the story, or especially if I can get you to camp, I
Mm.
promise you, writing that check is going to be so
Yeah.
easy when you see those kids.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I'm so honored to say that the churches that I have served at, because uh, obviously the church where this ministry began, I'm being a pastor myself, I'm not there anymore. But the churches that I have been to since then, they have all, because I'm gonna tell everybody about camp. That's just that's just part of it. They have all said absolutely, we will support this and help out. And So we're kind of running short, a little bit short on time. So I do want to ask you though, Leslie, if somebody is hearing this and they're saying, I want to get involved. How would somebody go about, whether it's with our particular camp or just in general?
Okay. So, even if you're not sure as far as how to reach like a camp that might be closer to you, by all means, either call, text, or email me, and I'm more than happy to get you in touch with whomever I need to get you in touch with, and answer any questions that you might have. My email is Leslie, and that's Leslie at royalfamily218.org. So Leslie at royalfamily218.org. And then my cell phone, which never leaves my side these days, is 205 370 8709. And I am more than happy to talk to you about our camp or talk to you about any camp and, find a place for you to get involved.
Awesome, very good. And we will also we'll put that we'll put her, Leslie's. We may not put her phone number, just
It's okay.
but we'll at least put your contact info, your email, how to get in touch with you on our show notes, so that folks can have
I was
that.
gonna say we also have an Instagram account. Facebook is not very nice, so we don't have a Facebook account, but we do have an Instagram account, and it is for the children underscore RFK218.
Very good. Awesome. So that's how you find out more. Or you can always reach out to me. I never get tired of talking about camp. And really, if you connect with any of the volunteers, they will be the same way. And you will get tired of talking about camp before we do. So just a couple of last questions for you, Leslie. One is one is really this: what do you think is the biggest thing that God has taught you through working with this camp?
I would say he has taught me more patience than I
Mm,
probably thought I ever needed or could have.
mm,
I'm not exactly, typically have been known as a patient person, but dealing with so many different people at camp and coming from so many different walks in life, I mean, you've got to have some patience, but also seeing the transformation again with the kids and with the volunteers. It's not an instantaneous kind of thing. So, just being patient and, watching that.
mm.
Definitely a lot of patience.
Yeah. Yes, patience and flexibility are the key words for the week. But it's so awesome, and I'm like you, just seeing God at work throughout the week, seeing God move not just in the kids' lives but in the volunteers' lives. It is just the most awesome thing to witness, and I love it. Okay, last question. I ask everybody this, and so you don't get a pass on it.
Darn.
I'm wondering, I'm wondering, Leslie, do you have a favorite hymn or worship song, or is there one that is really speaking to you in this season of your life?
Probably my favorite right now, and because it's an aspect of my life that I'm trying to really work on for a lot of reasons, is my prayer life. So, the song right now by Crowder, "Somebody Prayed," like that can get in my head, and I can listen to it
Mm,
just over and over again, and it's the reminder that I need, especially as I'm trying to really strengthen that part of my life.
awesome. That's great. That's a great answer. That's so good. All right, well, friends, that is about all the time we have today on the Heart and Life podcast. What a great conversation. Of course, now I'm going to say every conversation about RFK is a great conversation, um, but really, thank you, Leslie, for being on and sharing about this
Absolutely.
awesome ministry. Friends, I want to close out today with a story that we were told the very first year of camp, a story that has stuck with me through all of these years, and it goes a little bit like this. There was a young boy walking along a beach, and on the beach were thousands of starfish that had been washed up during a recent storm. And when he came to each starfish, the little boy would kneel down and pick it up and throw it back out into the ocean. People were watching this little boy do this with kind of amusement, watching him go down the beach and throw starfish after starfish. Well, he had been doing this for some time, and this man approached him and he said, "Why are you throwing these starfish? Look at this beach. This beach is covered in starfish. You can't possibly save all of these starfish. You can't begin to make a difference." Well, the little boy seemed crushed. But a few moments later, he bent down, he picked up another starfish, and he hurled it as far as he could out into the ocean. Then he looked up at the man and said, "Well, I made a difference for that one." The old man looked at the little boy and thought about what he had said and done, and inspired, he reached down and he picked up a starfish and he threw it into the ocean. Pretty soon others came down to the beach and started picking up and throwing those starfish back into the ocean and saving them one by one. What I have found to be true is this: being faithful in doing the small things is what ends up making the big things the big things. What small thing can we do that will make a difference today? What small thing can we do that will ultimately end up being the big thing? Well, thanks once again to Leslie Spencer for joining us today. Look forward to talking with you all again soon, and God bless. Well, that's about all the time we have today on the Heart and Life podcast. We hope you've enjoyed our conversation, but even more, we hope that something in it brought you hope, inspiration, or maybe taught you something new. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, follow, subscribe, and share our podcast on your podcast platform of choice. Music for today's episode is Genoa by 50 Sounds.